We're now joined by Shan Byrd, who is a special educator for New Brunswick Public Schools. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
You specialize in trauma. Trauma in our schools. First of all, what is it? And second of all, what is the role of educators in helping those struggling with trauma?
So, a lot of times when we say trauma, we think of people coming back from war and suffering from PTSD. But trauma has a much broader definition. What it looks like in our schools is when we have those students that, let's just say, are having behavioral problems. If we really look behind things and look a little closer, we'll find that they may have different traumas that they're experiencing in the home. And as educators, we can just be very mindful of the traumas that they may be experiencing and begin to ask the question of what happened, not what's wrong with this child.
How do teachers get trained to pick this up, Shan, and then act on it? It sounds like a tremendous responsibility that we're putting on educators.
So it's not so much the training, it's more so an awareness and the exposure. And in all of that, we also have to consider that as teachers are actually working with children, they too themselves may be experiencing secondary trauma, but it's a matter of awareness and then seeking out support.
Is trauma exacerbated in the age of a global pandemic, and if so, how?
Absolutely. So many different layers. If I start with students, now they are locked in the home for several hours a day, unable to socialize with their peers. Parents are besides themselves, right? Because they are unable to effectively teach as an educator would. And then teachers, many of my colleagues, while they're trying to teach, they have to care for their own children.
That's right.
It is absolutely exacerbated.
You know, you presented at the NJEA convention, the virtual convention, and our colleagues and friends at the NJEA told us about you. So I want to follow this up with this question. We're doing a series called Confronting Racism
Yes.
in all of its forms. Race is a major factor when it comes to trauma, is it not?
Absolutely. There have been studies recently that show that racialized trauma can have an effect on a person's DNA and that it can be carried out from generation to generation. Absolutely.
And it's so interesting that we've had people, I'm not going to name names, who actually argued with a serious face that systematic structural racism does not, institutional racism does not exist. You see it firsthand and work with your colleagues to confront that racism and deal with it.
Yes.
But what would you say to those who say, come on, we all have trauma, we all have challenges, it's no different for someone of color, you say?
I say, you haven't walked in those shoes.
Race and trauma is everyone's responsibility, is it not?
Yes, it is. Absolutely. We all have a part to play.
And for those of us who are white, who say, well, we don't see it, it isn't for us to see because we experience it directly. It's for us to empathize and try to imagine what it might be like to be in someone else's shoes, is it not?
I would say as human beings, it's up to you to empathize, to take action, and to use your privilege to assist those who do not have it.
So well said. I often say to people, you can have a lot of skills and tools as a leader, as a teacher, as an educator, whatever, but you can't teach people to care. Either you do or you don't. And Shan Byrd, I want to thank you for joining us and providing such a powerful perspective, special educator for New Brunswick Public Schools, and thank our colleagues at the NJEA for introducing us to you. All the best, Shan.
Thank you so very much.
I'm Steve Adubato. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by the New Jersey Education Association, NJM Insurance Group, Valley Bank, PSC&G, Englewood Health, Johnson & Johnson, the Turrell Fund, supporting Reimagine Childcare, ADP, and by MD Advantage Insurance Company. Promotional support provided by the New Jersey Business and Industry Association and by New Jersey Monthly.
It only gets better when we stand together to tough through and get by, even though it's harder than ever, 'cause we're gonna make it, long as we don't break it. Just do right, there's no sides, we must know